this session shall be recorded. If you do not wish to be shown, please just don't show your video through the session. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today. You're talking to us about MAUS business platform, and I understand that you have a presentation to share with us. Sort of the first thing that we are keen to know is, can you briefly describe what your solution does and take over the screen as you need to?
Certainly. I might pull up the screen sharing at the same time just while I chat through, and I'll just pop a slide deck to begin. So yeah, firstly, thank you very much for having me along today. It's fantastic to see so many people jumping into these sessions, and the fact you're putting these on over the next few weeks. I think it's such a fantastic initiative for the accounting and bookkeeping industry, just to get a bit more of a feel for the different solutions that are out there, because there are so many nowadays, and it's so hard to keep up to date with it all. But hopefully, look, hopefully a lot of you have heard of MAUS before. We've been in this space for a little bit over 20 years now. And first and foremost, we are a business advisory platform, so used by primarily accountants and bookkeepers, independent consultants and coaches. So it's been used by over 10,000 organisations over the last 20 years. And I think where we really sit and position ourselves is that end-to-end solution and that bespoke solution for people wanting to offer business advisory or consultancy services. So in that cloud-based platform that is MAUS, there's over 15 different modules which you can pick and choose from to help you really structure and automate the different stages of your advisory services. So obviously we speak to a lot of accountants and bookkeepers who are saying they want to get more involved in advisory, and it's definitely a buzzword at the moment, but there's a lot of confusion around how do we do that? What do we offer? What can I offer? So with a platform like MAUS behind you, we really see, and really what's up on the slide there, those two key areas addressed. One is the structure and automation. So having a tool set behind you, so every step of the way, you've got a tool and you've got an automated report that can be generating out of that. So whether it be that very first meeting, so I might meet a client for the first time today, and I want to have that really just high level conversation around, look, where are they at the moment? Where do they want to take their business? There's a tool there to do so. Or it might be they want help putting together a strategic plan because they may want to go and apply for finance at the banks. There's a strategic planning tool to help you have that structure. Right through to that monthly accountability. So if we're having those monthly value-based sessions and what we really drive in that advisory space, then again, you've got that monthly dashboard and those reports that can generate out. And what we ultimately see there as a result is that confidence. So the fact that it gives you, as the advisor, confidence to say, well, look, I can help you with your business. I can help you to put together this plan, or I can help you to produce those monthly financial reports, because you've got a system there behind you where you can feed in that data, whether it be from Xero or QuickBooks or Excel, and then there's other components that don't need that sync as well. So it's really just giving you that suite of tools. And probably the most flexible component of that with us is that choice. Obviously, there are quite a few different tools there for you to simply pick and choose from. So you can say, well, I want to use this, or I want to use that, or I'll offer this to my clients. So there's a tool there in MAUS to help automate that. So yeah, and we'll do a bit more of a show and tell later on in the session. So in terms of the outcome for people that use our platform, what we probably see is that structure and confidence, but also this is a really good testimonial from one of our core users down in Victoria, and it's the fact of using the tool set was able to help him broaden out his services. Traditionally, prior to using a tool set like MAUS, it was a very narrow focus. It was a CFO-based focus, which is what we hear a lot. We hear, I want to offer CFO services, which, and a lot of the time it's coined as advisory, which we understand completely. But for us, it's falling short. It's stopping before we're getting to that real meaningful advice where we're helping that client to make changes to the business. Yes, those financial reports are fantastic. Yes, it's great to see the clarity around the numbers, which is something which they fall short on so often. But off the back of that, then what? What are we doing with the client once we work out, okay, well, there's an issue here. So having that suite of tools such as MAUS and the advisory suite there to go beyond that sort of CFO advisory, going through that strategic planning and those really meaningful areas of the business. So what I wanted to touch on before we go into sort of the MAUS side of things and the software is probably just paint a bit more of a picture around the advisory space. I said to you this morning, Heather, even seeing on the small business group on Facebook, someone saying, well, as an accountant, what can I be talking to my client about? before I'm going to say financial advice. And look, the short answer there is it is largely an unregulated space, the business advice or business consulting area, which in itself presents issues. Obviously, the quality of service being provided. And so what we really want to see as well is advisors or accountants and bookkeepers offering advice, having a tool set behind them to make sure that that quality of service being provided is upheld. So you've got that structure and that, I guess, automated approach. But in terms of the advisor roles, we really can break it down into those two sides. One is that strategic management and guidance and the problem identification. And then the other side is more the empathetic side. So we know so many times, especially we've seen it over the last year, that how many small businesses turn to their accountant or bookkeeper and said, can you help me? Or just coming to you for that advice and support. So there is a lot of that component as an advisor is that encouragement and motivation, that empathy. So we already see that a lot of the accountants and bookkeepers are already doing this. They're already providing that advice. They're already having these conversations, but we're not charging for it. It's free advice. We're having those conversations. We're giving away a lot of value, which is fantastic.
Can I just stop you and say hallelujah? Because I hear this all the time. People say, I had this conversation with them, but it had no value to it. And I'm like, that was the most valuable conversation you possibly had with your client. That's where that's where it should be charged.
Hugely, yeah. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there in terms of those conversations are invaluable. Having that external person that they can turn to as a soundboard, because so many times they are going it alone, or it's a husband and wife thinking, what are we doing? Or it's someone just going by themselves through the dark and they don't have that soundboard. So looking at yourself as that person that they turn to for that even general conversation. And it might be more empathetic than business advice, but you being that person, that go-to and that support, it's just about using, say, tools or using structure to then monetize that, to say, okay, look, when you come through to me, well, we can do your compliance work, or we can do the compliance and business advice and business advisory. And that's a different option. And so it's really about productizing that. And so what we also understand is there's a lot of you that have existing clients that think, look, I'm too far down the rabbit hole to try and generate income from an advisory perspective with those clients. Because we really see your advisory-based clients come from two different areas. New clients coming in and having that as the initial conversation of, we can do this side, but also going back to those existing clients that you've already got a great relationship with, and using something like our initial diagnostics, so our client needs tool, which we'll show in the demonstration, to help start that conversation that, hey, we can do more for you than what we are currently, and we can structure that. So having that sort of free business health check as a nice lead into that engagement. So I guess ultimately, when we go into the business advisory space, what are we looking to achieve? And it can really be put down to three core things. Number one, more money. So for the business themselves, where's that trapped cash? Where's that missing profit? Where's those expense reduction items? More time. It's fantastic that you're all in this session today looking at systems, looking at tools. There are so many fantastic platforms out there, especially if your clients are using things like Xero, the amount of add-ons into Xero that can help them automate their day-to-day processes to free up time. And there's so much emotive language you can use there as well. When you're thinking about marketing your services as an advisor, talking about freeing up that time with the family, not having to spend 12 hours a day working on the business, and having that time to lift their head up and look at putting the right systems in place so they can have that time. And ultimately, less stress. If we've got a well-oiled machine that's running, that's automated, that's structured, then we're not stressed. We know what's happening in our business. And that less stress component really also touches on a big potential service offering in the advisory space, which is exit and succession planning. Talking to your clients that have these huge assets of their business that they don't think about. They haven't thought about, in 10 years' time, if I'm looking to retire, what am I going to do with this business? Even having those initial conversations with them, because there's a lot of wealth tied up in that business. And if that's potentially going to determine their post-exit lifestyle, so their retirement, well, then it needs to be treated with importance. And so, again, there's tools in MAUS that can talk to them about value building and exit and succession as an area there. But I think one of the best analogies which I like is this one here, is as an advisor, what are we doing? And you're not doing everything, because you need to know where you're comfortable offering that advice. And the best analogy to use that I can think of is think of yourself like a GP. If I'm not feeling well or something's wrong, I go to my doctor. My doctor looks at me and says, okay, I think it's this. Or if it's something that they can't put their finger on, they say, look, I'm going to refer you to a specialist. That is the exact same for an advisor. Think about, okay, well, you all know the numbers. You all know that for those sides of the business. You may know the strategic side, but you may not be too familiar with marketing or HR. So you might think, okay, well, is there someone that I can refer that to? So I think another key part of being their business advisor is thinking about those strategic relationships which you guys can set up with those other professional services, which will ultimately also help you to grow your network and your client base. So think about an expert marketer that you might want to have set up a relationship with in your local area. Or think of a legal professional who you might want to set up that relationship with that you can refer clients to. Or a financial planner. I saw that question this morning around where do I run that line of providing financial-based advice and business advice. And that can be a line that you just need a bit more clarity around. So even having that relationship with a financial planner to loop them in. So that thinking of yourself like a GP is a great way to look at it. And I think one of the biggest things there as well is treating the cause, not the symptom. So if we see poor financial results, we're seeing there's an issue in the business, there's causality to that. So then as an advisor, it's looking at, okay, what's causing that? So if my neck's out, it could be something that's wrong in my back. It's not that my neck's out. So we need to look at the cause. So I think as an advisor, we're having those conversations and we're getting them to think of the big picture of their business. So I think that in itself, that graphic there, is something you should all nearly screenshot and have on your desktop to think, what am I doing as an advisor? So what I wanted to then touch on is the MAUS platform. And now there's no right or wrong in terms of the way you work with a client. If a client is saying they need help in a certain area, go straight there. We will never tell you with the MAUS platform to follow a set wheel and a set structure, because no two clients are going to be the same. But at the same time, we have a suite of tools that are really implemented at different stages of the client lifecycle. So at the very top is the client discovery, is having that initial meeting with a potential client. And that's our client needs analysis. Or it could be an existing client that you want to get a little bit more hands-on with. And that's that business health check. So that's, I'm meeting clients for the first time. Let's work out who this client is and what they want to achieve. We then have a great little calculator which sits to the side of that called the what if. And that's looking at profit, revenue, and cash and saying to them, look, if we can achieve certain results, so if we can shift your sales a little bit, or if we can get some more leads into the business, what's going to happen to your revenue in that circumstance? Or if we can decrease your COGS, what's going to happen to your profit? And that's a really good return on investment calculator, because if I'm showing my client that, and then I'm going to say, look, and as part of this, we're going to charge you $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000, depending on the size of the client, a monthly advisory fee, but they're seeing these potential fantastic results, then there's a great return on investment there in their minds. Then we come down to that core area there in the middle where we see the business planning and CFO. And that CFO side is where a lot of you are very familiar, having the great financial reporting tools to feed in, pull out CFO sort of reports, which is fantastic. But I think the questions are going to be asked off the back of that. So your client's going to say, okay, now what? So what do we now do in the business? Or what's the cause of that? And that's where all these, and then I think, so where we're talking then is around that business planning and strategy. So having that strategic plan. So when was the last time they actually thought about who their key target markets are, or who their key competitors are in the space, or looked at a bit of a forecast from a cash flow and a P&L perspective? Or talking about that exit and succession planning, as I mentioned. So maybe they're in that stage where they're coming towards the latter stage of the business life cycle or their personal involvement in the business. So talking to them about that exit and succession process. And then that business coaching term there. Now, business coaching can have a bit of a negative connotation. So use the term business consulting or business advisory. It's all the same. It's just a different way in which we provide the service. But that's really then the ongoing. So having that, what drives into that monthly accountability, that ongoing accountability session. So what we want to see nowadays with advisory is gone of the days of an hourly-based charge rate or a project-based fee where we come in and implement a certain project. We want to see you work with these clients over years. So we've got that monthly accountability session where you're coming in and saying, okay, guys, what did we achieve last month? And we look at that KPI dashboard. Moving forward, what initiatives are we working on? So beside that KPI dashboard, there's tasks and actions and outcomes that we're then ultimately going to hold that client accountable to. So just before I jump into the software side of things, there's this final page here. Now, there is a lot of information on this page, I understand. So I don't want to get too overwhelmed and daunted, but this, in a nutshell, is the whole advisory suite of tools within MAUS. So up here in the top left is your client engagement and proposal. So you've got that client needs that we just spoke about in the profit tool. You've also got the capability to create your own assessments and quizzes. So if you're starting to specialize in a certain industry, or you only work with a certain type of client, you can create an initial sort of health check or assessment for that industry. Down here in the exit and succession component, there's obviously a number of different questionnaires and audits that we run on the business. Up here in the strategy and financial component, this is the most common area for the accountants and bookkeepers that are driving into advisory. So having that strategic planning, having that monthly dashboarding and reporting. And then not as common, but can be depending on the clients that you work with. If you're working with a lot of clients that are tradies or in manufacturing or construction, the HR and systems side can be quite prevalent as well, because we also tap into the health and safety and ISO standards there. So just depending on the type of clients that you're working with. But hopefully that gives you a really nice introduction and overview of MAUS as a whole. Before we go into the MAUS side of things and the demo side, Heather, was there anything else you wanted to address there?
Can I ask you? It's probably a silly question, but what is this not ideal for? So I guess what client does this really not work for?
Yeah, great question. So we're definitely not an industry-specific tool. So if you're wanting a very purpose-built industry-specific suite of tools that has data and content specific for a type of client, we're not the best solution for you. So for instance, if you're wanting to just do business plans for tradies, there's probably a tool out there that just does business plans for tradies, and you're probably better off to start with something like that if you're coming into really purpose-built. I would also say very detailed financial projections. So some of our advisors and accountants and bookkeepers work with some high-level clients. So the vast majority use our KPI tool, and that's sufficient because we just need simplistic financial reporting. But if you do have some clients that need rather detailed forecasting and scenarios, we would typically encourage you to look at some of the other great tools that plug into Xero, like your Fathoms and your Spotlights. They're fantastic tools to go to that higher level financials. I think where we really sit is just getting advisory right. It's great to have those detailed financial reporting tools, but how do we get the clients there? We can't just go out there tomorrow and say, hey, do you want a financial report? It's let's talk to them about their business and where they want to take that business and where the gaps in their business are, both financial and non-financial. So I think, yeah, in terms of probably two areas that we wouldn't see our tool perfectly suitable for, would be those two. Okay.
And I presume you're about to show us how Xero or an accounting solution connects in with your product.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's jump into the MAUS platform itself, and we'll go through the tool. So what we'll do is we'll go right from sort of the start. So here we are on the MAUS login page. Obviously, as you can see, it's all a cloud-based portal. So we just log in to the platform. Now, it is worth noting.
Wait, we need to stop. What's the tab for wedding?
The trusty wedding tab right there front and center so I don't forget. So my fiance is always reminding me. That is the wedding planning for the wedding on the 21st of May.
Congratulations.
Leads me up very, very quickly. So yes, that consumes my out of office and lunch break at the moment. Yeah, trying to manage COVID restrictions or no COVID restrictions.
I'll let you keep going. Congratulations.
Thank you. But so what we see on the screen here now is I've logged in as the advisor. So I've logged in as all of you in the session today. And this is the screen that I see. So this is just simply the back end where I can manage my clients. Now, it's worth noting in our system, we don't have client limits. We don't have MAUS branding. So it's all white except for the little MAUS logo down there because I'm in the back end of the system at the moment. But it means for your client, it's not showing them MAUS. MAUS is irrelevant. It's where we really see ourselves as the hidden engine behind your services. So behind the fact of you pulling out a great strategic plan or a monthly management report, yes, you're using the engine of MAUS, but it's you guys. It's your brand. So put your branding your company at the forefront of this. So in the system, you can create as many clients as you'd like in that list. It just comes down to what MAUS tools you've picked in our range. So worth noting here as well that you can give your clients access to the platform. Now, that's a little bit more of a detailed, higher level thing. And there's areas of the platform that I would encourage that, and there's areas of the platform that I would discourage. So for instance, pulling out a strategic plan where you click a button and it pulls it all together in a report, I would discourage. They don't need to know that you necessarily have a system like that behind you. But something like the Kpi tool, for instance, it's hugely valuable for them to know that there's this great little monthly dashboard that they can look at any point in time and see how their business is performing. So if you've got multiple tools that you're using with a client, you can choose what they can and cannot see based on your access there. But in terms of here in the back end, all we're really doing is A, clicking on an existing client and going into their account, or B, setting up a new client. That's really what we're doing. So in this case, we're going to go into an existing client and run through some of the tools. So we just click on company ABC in this case, and it brings me straight into their account. So I'm now inside that client company, obviously where we can now use the tools and the systems with our client. So as you can see on the left-hand side, we've got some different categories. So we've got strategy and financial, we've got HR, and this is just simply so we can break down all the modules rather than having a big list there. So if I click on one of these, as we can see, there's our Kpi tool, there's our business planning tool. So it's really simplistic to jump between the different modules in MAUS if you're using multiple tools with us. Of course, if you're just using MAUS for just the Kpi tool, that's the only module that will appear there on the left-hand side. So it's really, really simple to navigate between those different tools. Now, in terms of a starting point, where we'll begin is in this assessment and analysis area. We've spoken about the client needs earlier in the session and that initial client health check. So I meet a client for the first time and having a structure to that meeting. This is your tool to use. So I'm meeting Heather for the first time today. She's a business owner and I want a structure to that meeting. I don't want to have to think about, oh, what do I ask? What am I meant to cover? I just want a nice, simple structure. Now, you don't have to have the computer in front of you in a meeting. Some people hate having a screen in front of them. They just want to talk. That's fine. You can have it as a PDF printout on a piece of paper, write it down, and at the end of the day, plug it back into the system. That's fine. So all we're doing here, though, is saying, look, where's your business at the moment? So what are your high-level financials? And where do you want that to get to? So what are your goals? And is that a 2-year goal, a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal? And for you individually, what do you want to achieve out of this? So many times as well, we just talk about the business and we forget about the person behind the business and what they want to achieve out of this. If we don't know where they want to go personally, then we have no idea about where we want to take that business. Is this a long-term goal to build a big organization? Is this a short-term goal to build business value and sell it and move on? Again, if we know that, we know which way we need to take that business. And then talking to them about the pain points. So saying to them, okay, well, that's great. You've got those goals and aspirations. What's stopping you achieving that? What are those key issues for you in your business? And really, what are those things that keep you awake at night? And one of the things we actually say to a lot of advisors using this tool is use this on yourself. Use this for the very first time. When you're getting a handle on how do I use these tools, you are your best case study. Take yourself through what you want to achieve and what are your key issues in the business. And it could be anything. It could be, well, my cash flow or my product range or my sales or my leads. I've just typed these in as examples. So as I'm chatting to the client, I'm putting in, they mentioned their cash flow, and that's a big priority because it's having a big impact on their business. And that moves them around this nice little chart, and then we get this great graphic that comes through in the report. And moving on from that, we talk to them about their core focuses. So, okay, what are your key focuses in the business? Is it business strategy and planning? So maybe we are dealing with that newer business where it's all about getting it right. Or maybe we are talking to that business that's growing very, very quickly. So there's systems and processes we need to ensure are tight and are going to grow with the business. And then we go through to our business scan. Now, this is one of our questionnaires in our system. We have a heap of these sort of questionnaires and diagnostics. And as I mentioned earlier as well, you can create your own questionnaires in our system. And if you do create your own questionnaire, they look identical to what's on the screen here, just with your own content. So you can have your own heading and your own questions. In this one, we're just talking about high-level areas in their business. So do you have your high-level business goals documented in this first question? And their answer could be, yes, we review it every quarter. So if you ever come across that unicorn of a business owner, they'll be scoring a 6. Or it'll be the common, oh, look, we did when we set up the business a long time ago. Okay, well, you're a 1 or a 2. We need to review those things. We need to look at where you're taking the business. So that's where, although you may read these as a yes, no, they never are. There's always that gray area and that middle ground. And then if required, you can put in any corresponding comments over on the right-hand side. And at the end of that, so we go through, this one's got about 7 different areas in that questionnaire. We'll get a result that simply says this client scored at X. Now you may give that to your client, or you might just keep that to yourself to then present in the report. Now, when we talk about the report, because you're using a system, you don't need to write reports. You simply click report and you choose the type of report that you want to run. Now, in this case, and in MAUS, there's a number of different reports. We can do a PowerPoint-based report. We can do a Word-based report. In this example, let's pull out the PowerPoint. So what that means is it's going to pull it out in a completely editable format. So whether it be in Word or in PowerPoint, it means you can rebrand it, you can edit the content, you can add to it, you can put your own style on it. We do not restrict you from that perspective with reporting because everyone's a little bit different. So open that up and here's our now finished report that we've just generated automatically out of the system. And if I click enable editing there, we can change anything in this PowerPoint. So we can change the heading, we can change the coloring, whatever we'd like to do there. As you can see, none of this is locked. So in my one where I've got mouse, remove the word mouse. And what we get is this really nice clean output that says, okay, what were their high level goals from the business and the personal perspective? What were those key issues in the business? How did they score in regards to that assessment, in regards to being a high performance business? And moving forward, what do they want to achieve from a business value perspective? And then from a suggested strategy, this is where you as the advisor can put in what you want to do with that client moving forward. So you might come up with your own 5-step process that you like to take every client through. So you might number these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You might use what we've got here as a bit of a structure, and that's just an example methodology. But what it means is we're being able to provide a really nice structured initial assessment to a client without overloading them with information and having a great output report that we can provide them to help secure those clients or get more involved with those existing clients. Now, off the back of client needs, then there's obviously the common question of, okay, well, where to now? And that really depends on the client because that's the starting point. That is them going, oh, okay, great. Looks like you can really help me with my business here. Let's work together. Now, off the back of that, that's where we start to talk about producing the monthly reports or going into a strategic plan. And that's where we would then encourage you to sync in your client's Xero file, for instance. Now, to do that, we don't do it per module. So once you link it in once, you're done. So all you do is you click on their name at the top and you say import accounting data. And this will import it for company ABC as a whole. So it'll automatically go into the Kpi tool. It'll automatically go into the business plan. So we simply choose the data source, so Xero, QuickBooks or Excel. We choose how much prior data you'd like to bring in. With Xero, we can do 2-year blocks at a time, so you can bring the last 2 years worth of data. And then simply click on submit. The beauty with Xero as well is the fact that we can also bring in their budget figures as targets for the KPIs. So you can click on that and that will also grab the budget figure. Click submit and that will just send me to Xero. We throw in the Xero credentials. It just pops up saying, can MAUS access this data? You click yes, and it returns you straight back into MAUS. That's all you do. So in Xero, you don't actually have to do anything. You just have to give permission. Then what it'll do is it'll bring you through to this map data and review data pages. Now, we bring you here as a second line of defense because we know not all Xero files are accurate, not all things are mapped correctly, if only they were. So it'll show you the P&L and balance sheet. Now, obviously, I've got a very, very basic one. Your one might have a lot more line items here. And all we want to simply check is everything listed correctly? So is non-operating income in this case listed as non-operating income? If it's listed as something else, you can change it here. We would encourage you though to go back to Xero and fix it at, again, the root of the problem. So like we spoke about with advisory, going back and fixing the core issue. Not just the Band-Aid here, just so we've got all the correct reporting. And then your review data page will just allow you to see the actual numbers. So did all the correct data come across? Have we grabbed all of the right information, or are things mapped incorrectly in Xero? Because we're simply just emulating whatever was over in Xero comes across. So you'll be able to see here, and you can choose the date range of how far you want to look, and you'll have a whole series of numbers there. If I go back to where I've got some data. So what that then means is we can go into two core areas, Kpi Tool and Master Plan. Now I'll start just with Master Plan as a quick insight regarding the strategic planning. So many businesses, as I mentioned before, simply don't have that strategic plan in place. And for you as the advisor, you want to have that solid foundation with the client of where are we going with this business? What are their goals? What do they want to achieve? Master Plan Lean is that step-by-step structure. So the way this works is it loads in a sample plan. So it just loads in generic text. So as you go through every single one of these tabs at the top, there's already text in there giving you some guidance around what's required in that area. So initially we look at obviously the overview. So what is this business? So what do they do, and some background. We then obviously look at the assumptions as well. So is this an existing or a new? Because that will change the financials. Is it a product or a service-based business? Are they under GST or VAT, or depending on where you are? So obviously we've got users now in over 15 different countries, so you can change those tax names and brackets. Now, when we come through to products, this would automatically be filled in if we've brought in the Xero file. We wouldn't need to do anything here because it's already brought in that information. However, we can go in and do it manually as well if they don't have the luxury of a Xero file, if they are doing things a little bit too manually in the business. And obviously we can put in what are their forecast growths and cost sales just as a percentage breakdown. We then talk about team. So if this is being used as an external, so maybe it's being used as an investor pitch deck, or it's going to the bank and applying for finance, they want to know who's running this business, who's at the core here. So putting in who are the key managers or who's the key owners in this business. Then talking to them around their target markets. So who are your target markets and how big a potential is that target market? And at the moment, do you think they're meeting their needs in marketing to them? So if this is excellent and this is low, well, therein lies a huge opportunity. You've got a product or a service that's perfect for this audience, but you're not targeting them. So maybe we need a session, or we need to bring in someone who can talk to us about how we can reach that audience. Same with the competitors. And rather than doing pages and page information, which old school business plans were, we don't need that. We just need simplicity. So who is the competitor? Simply, what do they do better? What do we do better? And how do we compare? That's all we need to know. So very similar for all of these tabs here to put together your SWOT analysis and your goals. But where we differ greatly is this page here from just a standard, say, business planning template. The fact that you can produce this plan with this. And what I've got on the screen is outcomes. So with that client, having a roundtable session with them and saying, okay, great, we've got a really good understanding of what you want to achieve in this business. Now, you said you wanted to launch a new product range or you want to expand overseas. If we approach it like that, it's sort of a, where do we start? What are we doing? But let's break that down. So there are numerous actions to achieve the international expansion here, for instance. So we need to hire a US BDM. Now, who's going to be responsible for that in the business and when's that due by? We need to develop a distributor agreement. Okay, well, who's going to be responsible for that and when's that going to be due by? So that means on top of, yes, your monthly financial reports and that KPI monthly meeting, we're also going to review this and say, okay, we set out a plan for the next 3 years. Are we on track to meet that? Are we on track to hit what we've put in place as goals for this business? And obviously as well, you've got the financials. So a core component to your strategic plan, especially if it's being used as a pitch deck or applying for finance, is the financials. So in here, you've got your complete breakdown. So we've got the products, which we saw before. We've got our forecast, so that will give us a 5-year projection. We've got our expense and cash, so we can see over the course of a year, how are our expenses falling due? So is it a monthly fixed fee, or is it something that varies and only falls due in certain months? Because that's going to affect our cash flow. And then looking at our cash cycle, so how quickly are we collecting revenue and paying expenses? And that on top of our seasonal pattern, and this is seasonal pattern of sales, so how do our sales fluctuate over the calendar year? That will automatically generate a P&L and a cash flow forecast for the next 12 months. So we straight away off that information can export out a cash flow forecast with a monthly breakdown for the next 12 months. Now, that looks a bit Excel because it is, So we also have more of a graphical representation of that. So a lot more visual for the client to actually look at and see, oh, okay, this is my expenses over the next 12 months. Or, oh, okay, here in the middle of the year, if we keep going the way we are, we're actually going to hit a bit of an overdraft here with our net cash. So you've got a really simplistic graphical representation that you can show with your client. And again, quick report, and all of that can come out into a slide deck style or a Word-based report. You're not needing to write any of that up. So we've looked at two modules there. We looked at the client needs to help start those conversations around advisory, and then this for that strategic plan. So master plan lean to help really bed down that engagement with the client. The last module I just wanted to touch on today is that Kpi tool. So as part of that monthly accountability session, this really is going to be your bread and butter. So I'll just go back to a month with some data because I don't have any data this year here. Let's just go back to around here. This becomes your monthly dashboard. So each month you can either bring this up on the screen with a client, you can print it out as a report, you can email it to the client as a report. And what we get is this really nice overview of, okay, well, for September, here's what you achieved. So I'm looking at new customers and new leads. So you can see it doesn't just have to be financials. Yes, it's great to see the P&L and balance sheet come in and look at how they're performing in regards to those financial KPIs, which are loaded into the system by default. But what are those more meaningful KPIs? So specific to them, what do they need to be tracking? And as long as it can be measured as a number, a currency, or a percentage, it can be a KPI in MAUS. Very, very simple to add those in. You just click the Add KPI button up here and add it into the system. So then I can choose and I can say, well, on this graph here, let's look at income against cost of sales. So I can simply untick those, tick on those, and update the chart. And then as we scroll down even further on this page, we can see any individual KPI and its performance over the last 12 months. So as you can see here, we've got new leads and how that's performing. And then below that, we've got a fantastic looking traffic light report where we can see, okay, from visually, this month and year-to-date figures, how are we performing? And it's very, very simplistic. We're not overloading them with information. We're putting a traffic light there that anyone could understand. And off the back of that, you can see you've got another one of those little blue boxes down here. So we can put in, okay, we can see a bit of an issue here. So we need someone in the business to review the COGS because we've got a cost of sales that's creeping up a little bit here against our target. So maybe let's select the applicable person in the business. So in this case, it might be Lauren Smith. Put in when we need to have that done by. So at the end of the month, we want a bit of an insight and click Add Action. And that now creates a task for Lauren. So we can review that as part of that monthly ongoing. And that will also send her an email saying, hey, you've been assigned a task in regards to whatever we've put in there as the action. So really simplistic dashboarding. We don't want to overload them with information. So many businesses aren't even doing this. They're not even doing the basics of monitoring their monthly performance. So putting this in place, and then over time, we might take this to another level. We might just start at company level, but then we might go to divisional or individual-based KPIs. But initially, just starting with the company, I think, is definitely the way to go. But yeah, so those three tools that I've touched on there are definitely the core sort of advisory. Heather, anything else you wanted to look into?
That's great. Thank you very much, Chris. We do have one question that's come through from Jose. I believe he's in the USA, so it might impact the answer to this. He's asking about pricing.
Yeah, look, really simple. So we're pretty typical in terms of that SaaS-based pricing model now. So what we are is a module-based pricing. So we don't do client limits, as I mentioned. So we just go from sort of one module pack to 3 modules to 5 modules and up like that. So in terms of the price point, it starts at $199 a month. So if you just want to use, say, the Kpi tool with every single one of your clients, you just pay $199 a month. If you then want to, say, use master plan and client needs, those 3 tools that we looked at today, you're just paying $299 a month. So the price per module comes down quite significantly as soon as we go to more than one tool. And our range is anywhere from $199 up to $499, depending on the range of tools you're using with us.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Chris.
Thank you.
And he's gone on to ask unlimited clients.
Yeah, exactly right. So per advisor, we just say it's an unlimited client license. So you can be using these tools with them and granting them access to the tools as long as they're an active advisory-based client of yours.
Yeah. Any other questions there? In the meantime, well, if we're waiting for any other questions to come through, would you like to let people know, Chris, how people listening in can get in touch with you?
Yes, certainly. I'll just pull up, I'll put up on the screen just my contact details just to make it easy for anyone that does want to chat further or get a bit more of an idea around MAUS. What we typically do with all accountancy and bookkeeping firms is more of a one-on-one session. So if you are looking to get a bit more of an idea around the platform itself and how it all works, I'll just put up in the chat box now my email address and also my contact number. So feel free to reach out, email through. We can book in a demo and go through it with yourself and then the other people within the firm that want to have a look at the tool. What we typically do in those sessions is get a really good understanding for where you're at the moment. Some people are trying advisory, some people it's just an idea, other people are a bit more down the track. So the way in which you implement the tools might be a little bit different. In terms of my number as well, I've just thrown up our office number. We're just based here in Sydney. So if anyone is also in the local area, more than welcome to pop in and say hi and see us. Always love to see people face to face.
For people who are watching the video back, could you maybe change, put on the next tab your website so they can at least come and find your website from there? And while I'm going to ask you to multitask while you're doing that, is there any partner program? We've been asked.
Yeah, there is. So in terms of a partner program, so for firms that are looking to go down the advisory side, there's two different avenues. I simply need tools to make that simple, and I need some tools that give me the structure and confidence. And then there's others that need a lot more. They need the marketing, they need the lead gen, they need the training, they need the hand holding. For those clients, we offer a complete accredited partner program. Now, what the partner program is, it's a licensing model. So you're not franchised with MAUS or anything like that. We don't have that sort of a model in place. What it means is, I'm just multitasking and putting up my contact details at the same time, apologies. What the partner program gives you is the license rights to all of that material. So you get access to all the marketing and lead gen material with us. So like that presentation that I had up earlier, all these graphics and brochures and banners around who you are and explaining your services, you don't need to create, because we, as your partner, create all of that for you. We have a lot of that collateral ready to go. So what that accredited partner program model does is over 12 months gives you a program to implement and go through, and training is included in that model. Off the back of the 12 months, you then just continue with a sort of a lower cost maintenance and continuation fee. So yeah, definitely. And I'm more than happy to send a more information kit through to anyone. So if anyone just emails me directly, I can send you through that information. I'll just pull up there now, my email address.
Okay, excellent.
So there's our contact number and our email address, now our website. But yeah, feel free to email me directly and we can organise a time to chat further.
Excellent, excellent. Oh, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. There appears to be no more questions, and people have your contact details there. Really appreciate you joining us and sharing with us the insights of MAUS Business Platform. Is there anything else you'd just like to leave people with? Otherwise, I'll say thank you.
No, look, I think that was the core part. I think thanks everyone for jumping into the session today. It's great to see so many of you, coming into these sort of sessions and looking at the advisory space. We know there's obviously so much interest in that area, and if anyone does want to chat further, I really encourage you to reach out. Obviously, we've got the software side. We've also got a great partnership and from an educational body called the Institute of Advisors, who run a great certification program. So if it's more around getting some training around advisory, that's also a great option to look at as well.
Excellent. Okay. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.